I grew tomatoes for years before I discovered what is now my favorite method for trellising tomatoes. Every year I struggled with tomato cages, then I moved on to the stake method. I didn't like the way that looked and I didn't want to have to replace the wood stakes every year or two. I do like the Florida weave method or weaving them onto a cattle panel, but this is still my absolute favorite way to trellis them. I recorded this video for IGTV long before I was on YouTube, but I still use the same method each year. I'm able to grow a wider variety of tomatoes in a much smaller space, and it keeps things nice and tidy. I will provide you with another video this summer to show you how to continue training the tomatoes beyond the point shown in the video. But this will give you a nice head start while planning your growing spaces this spring and summer. I hope you enjoy this method as much as I do. Hi you guys, I'm out in my garden. I have a quiet moment. I was going to work on training my tomatoes, pruning them and training them up the string trellis that we use. So I wanted to show you, before I did it all, I wanted to show you my process in case it was something that inspired you in your garden. There are so many different ways to do it, and I've tried all different, cages and setups, and just the stakes in the ground, which work for people, a lot of people, and I really liked that way, but there were still some issues I had with it, and I really prefer, unless you're maybe in a windy location. I have heard that that can be an issue, but we don't usually have a lot of summer wind, so this works really good for where we are at, and I want to show you what I'm talking about, so I will spin it around. This is the rebar trellis that my husband and I made that goes across the beds for the tomatoes, and then I just use natural jute twine. I tie it up to the top here, right above where I want to train the tomato, and then I gently tie it to the base of the tomato plant, and then I just wrap the main leader around as it goes. And I cut off all of the growth that tries to grow up until the first fruit set. So there's the first fruit set there where the flowers are. Come over here and show you. So this one hasn't been done yet. So I'm going to take off all of these lower stems. This is what you would call a sucker here. So these are just the leaves, the leaves branching. Those aren't going to produce fruit. So don't take them all off, but I do take them off up until the first fruit set, like I said. So for this one, it is setting fruit up here. So I am going to take all of the growth below that off. You don't want to wait too long on this because it can be stressful to the plant, especially when it gets really hot, to be removing too much of its growth. But try to keep up on it. It can get out of hand, or just take it easy and give it a decent trimming, and then a couple days later come back. But keep that in mind. Now this is what you would call a sucker. This will turn into another leader like this big old dude, and these can create a ton of new leaders. Like there's going to be another one, and yes, you will get more fruit, but the fruit is less uniform. There's not as much circulation for the plant. It just gets really dense and turns into a tomato jungle quickly, which is really fun to grow those giant jungle tomato plants. But personally for me, I want to grow so many varieties that I really want to fit as many as I can close together as I can. So I have to keep them well pruned so that there is airflow for less fungal disease and stuff like that. So I'm going to shut up now and take this sucker and this leaf branch off. I'll take this one off. I usually use my hands, but I was trying to be a good example and use my pruners this time. Usually I just use my thumbnail and pinch that off, but sometimes you will tear the stem a little bit, so you should use pruners. I didn't get close enough on this one because the string was in the way. Okay. So that gives us a lot more breathing room, and I'm going to also take off this one, and this is trying to become a new leader, and you can see that it's actually setting little blossoms there. You could leave it and do 2 leaders. That doesn't make it too crowded, but I am going to be brutal and take it. You could also root this in water, just set it in a jar of water and put it in the sun, and that would give you a new plant. That's a pretty good size, but I don't need more plants, that's for sure. I have plenty of those. So I'm just gonna take that off. It's kind of hard to do, but I've gotten better at just being harsh about it. And I'm gonna take this guy off too. And one reason I want so much room down here is because I do have a few pepper plants, but mostly basil and marigolds. There's marigold. Those can get pretty big and bushy, and I want those to utilize this space down here, and they will shade the tomato roots as well, keeping it moister and reducing the watering needs. So I don't want to have all of this growth, and then the marigolds can get pretty big. Same with the basil. I don't want all of that intermingling and you know, creating an environment where fungal diseases could be present. So now that this guy's pruned, it's gonna be so easy to just see if I can do it one-handed. Spin it around. Being careful not to break off those buds. I had to put down the camera for the rest of that, but there we go. You see how it's spiraling up? It's nice and supported. I try not to leave too much slack. I like to keep it pretty tight so that there's not too much wiggle room, because this jute can be sort of coarse and cut into the vine, and I don't want that. So I try to keep it nice and taut so that I don't have as much issue with that. Like I said, watch the blossoms when you're doing that. And yeah, so this one's nice and supported now. I'll go on to this guy here, and I will just show you while I do that real quick without talking. Yay for you, huh? So I hope you guys found that helpful, seeing how I like to train and prune my tomatoes, and I hope it'll give you guys some inspiration for how you want to mix it up maybe in your garden.